Welcome to Metal Matters, a Gimme Radio podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hill, and I'll be leading you on this adventure. We'll be getting into deep discussions about classic records, profiles on up-and-coming bands, and interviews with your favorite artists. You can check out new episodes every week, so be sure to subscribe and never miss out. So Cradle of Filth is going on tour again in a few weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. It's 2 weeks.
Yeah. Now this is continuing the tour for 2017's Cryptoriana. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah. That portion of the tour, the American leg, was actually sandwiched between European leg and South America as part of a larger tour, like a world tour. So this is why we're coming back, fulfilling our duties to the American public by playing all the places that we didn't play last time.
So you guys are known for pretty elaborate stage sets and that sort of thing. Is there anything new?
It'll be more elaborate this time.
Really?
Because, well, we've had time to plan. We've got 3 days in LA. A rehearsal studio to bring all our bigger lights in and our new cool gimmicks on stage. We've got these weird like projectile cannon things that spray out that you can use anywhere as opposed to fire. And just cool stuff going on, new costumes, new stage props. It's one step up from the last tour.
That's awesome. Cradle of Filth started like way back in '91, which is within a couple of years of the second wave of black metal that is primarily known for the Norwegian bands. And so you're being from the UK. Like back then, there was no social media, virtually no internet, and it was all just magazines and letter writing and things like that. So were you influenced by any of those early bands?
Absolutely. We were in contact with the majority of them. If we weren't playing with them, we are friends with Impaled Nazarene, Immortal, Rotten Christ, Moonspell, Necromantia, Marduk, Emperor, Dissection. Yeah, Dissection supported us. Yeah, we were in the thick of it, mainly because, as you mentioned, there was no social media at that point. In fact, unless you were like Don Johnson, nobody really had a mobile phone either.
Yeah.
So it was all about tape trading, letter writing, calling people from phone boxes, public boxes.
Really?
Or obviously your home phone or whatever, but it's expensive bringing foreign countries. But yeah, there was a good underground scene, mainly courtesy of labels like Peaceville and Earache. But mainly Osmos and early Nuclear Blast as well. We were in contact with most of those, well, all of those bands I've mentioned beforehand, and Mayhem as well. And in fact, Burzum's record label was actually the woman came down who ran the label, Diamanda, came down to visit me for an interview for Kerrang once, and fell in love with the village in which I lived, which is very historical. And so she moved her record company there as well. So yeah, pretty much knew everybody.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by just the. I mean, I'm a bit older as well, and I've been around since the '80s and whatnot. But I'm always fascinated how different countries somehow, like, there's a scene, and even without all of the technology that we have today, that people still manage to, just for the love of the music and the love of the art form, still manage to sort of come together and have like similarities, and they sort of feed off of each other in that way.
Yeah, well, I actually think I prefer it like that.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. People appreciate music more when it's not so immediate. If you haven't got the ability to download 30 albums one after the other, but you go out, you spend a whole afternoon shopping, and you come back with one album that you really, you know what, I'm going to take a punt on this. Whether it's good or not, or you did. You spend a lot of time listening to that record and getting familiar with it. I still do it, and mainly because I'm quite lazy. If it goes in the car in the stereo, it rarely comes out if it's a good album. So like at the moment, I've got Kraft's album, White Noise Black Metal, which came out last.
That's a great record.
It's
excellent,
phenomenal, and I know it. I literally know it off by heart because it's been in my in my car stereo now since mid-October, I think. Yeah. On and off, apart from my learning Spanish CD.
Learning Spanish?
Yeah.
Interesting. I was thinking about learning Spanish as well. Living in New York, that's like almost that's a very common language over here.
Yeah. And Italian.
And Italian, yeah.
New York.
Well, I know a bit of Italian, so that's already covered. But, so one of the other things that I find interesting about Cradle of Filth is, though, yes, you're a black metal band, there's like that sort of atmosphere as well. But as the career went on, I noticed, and this might just be me projecting, but stuff like Fields of the Nephilim and, maybe Bauhaus and this sort of gothic element sort of creeping its way in, primarily with more of the mid-period onward records. So is a lot of that stuff, sort of informing you as well?
Yeah, well, I guess so. I mean, we've always been influenced by a range of bands. The sort of London Batcave, late 70s, early 80s goth scene. Soundtracks, very important. Yeah. Black metal, death metal, traditional heavy metal, thrash. So, I mean, I think as a career meanders throughout, let's say 12 albums for argument's sake, probably more, maybe less. Can't remember. As your career meanders throughout those albums, of course you're going to change and then come back to a sound that people are familiar with and then move into different directions. That's the fun of it. Do you know what I mean? That's what a band does. You don't expect a band to be releasing the same album over and over again.
That does happen, though, sometimes, unfortunately.
Well, it happens with a lot of bands, to be honest, but that's what you attempt to do.
There's an ideology associated with black metal, be it Satanism or paganism or something along those lines. And I know that you had a book, that the Gospel of Filth, which was as you described it as a sort of literary occult sort of document. Do you have an occult practice, or is that something you're interested in?
I used to be. I mean, yes, I am totally into it as much as I used to be. I grew up, as aforementioned, in a very cool part of the country. It's called the Witch County. I used to live in a house that was once frequented by the Witchfinder General, not the Vincent Price one from the movie, but the original Hopkins. So it's always been part and parcel of my life. I think that's what steered me in the direction of horror movies and, believe it or not, metal. And I've spoken about this and written about it a lot, about the conjunction of horror and metal and the whole gothic ideology. But when I was younger and had more time on my hands and less commitment, I used to practice it a lot more. I used to be well involved with it. Used to go to meet people and discuss it and do all kinds of weird rituals and other traveling to do it. Now, the ritual that I do is the fact of actually making tours and making this shit happen and performing. I collect more occult paraphernalia than I've ever done before, because obviously I've got the finance now to do that sort of thing. And my house is a little bit like the Addams Family, but a bit more like a museum of the Addams Family's house. So yeah, I'm totally into it. It's just there's only so many hours of the day. I love reading about it. I love what I'm reading to the moment is trying not to watch. I'm a massive movie buff. Trying not to watch TV, or as little as possible. Trying to do more exploring. Me and my girlfriend have been going out, and like we did lots of different places last year. Recently just come back from India and Spain since Christmas. So yeah, I'm just going through that part of my life where, trying to be a bit of an adventurer. Probably midlife crisis, the Porsche. the Porsche.
Yeah, but magic, like sort of a magical practice, not so much like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, but just meditating.
No, I think life and what you do with it and is a form of ritual and magical process, especially the creation of music and the dissemination of the ideology behind and in between the music. I think that's magic in itself. I mean, if you go by any of the philosophies, then that indeed is making more movements in the universe than a lot of people maybe sitting around a cauldron on the Brocken, on Walpurgis Eve or something.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, even if you think about it, just there is a certain alchemical feel to creating music. You have like nothing, this void, and then you collect your ideas. And then all of that, over time gets refined into, music or some sort of art. And that people oftentimes overlook the sort of alchemical nature of art in general. But yeah, I think that you guys definitely sort of express that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in your book, in the Gospel of Filth, you have Clive Barker. Are you a personal friend of his? I'm a huge fan of Clive Barker, his work.
Well, not that much of a friend, but he didn't actually supply the foreword we wanted. He was going to do the foreword and then just didn't. So our good friend Doug Bradley, who is a very good friend of Clive Barker as well. Obviously, Doug Bradley, Pinhead, now the Undertaker, is he the Undertaker or the Preacher? Sorry, for Blackcraft Wrestling.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously he's been a stalwart of the Cradle of Filth empire as well. I mean, he's been on several records, and I'm really hoping to work with him again, because I just think that his voice goes so well with what we do, and it's become synonymous with Cradle of Filth. People recognize his participation. I think he's now been on 4 records,
Yep.
Which I should know, but I don't.
Those details sometimes escape as time goes by.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, that book was a real labor of love, and there's so many people that were interviewed for that are so cool and so relevant to both the horror genre, I say the horror, the occult, the rock, the artist, the underground, the fetish, everything that book encapsulates. I think we got it with the people that were interviewed for it.
Speaking of voices, Ingrid Pitt appears on a name that probably only true fans of horror and specifically the Hammer horror films would know. She appears on one of your records too.
Yeah, Cruelty and the Beast.
Yeah.
The idea behind that was the fact that the album concerns itself. It's a full story based around Elizabeth Bathory, the Hungarian blood countess, and Ingrid actually played the character of Elizabeth Bathory in the film Countess Dracula.
Right.
And so we have her as the voice of the Countess as she gets slightly older, towards the end when she's, assailed of her crimes and imprisoned in a tower and blah, blah, blah. And it's awesome. I mean, we've just literally remixed that entire album from the original tape. So the tapes had to be found, secured, baked to bring them back to life again, and that process had to be transferred to digital.
Right.
And that's coming out quite soon via Sony.
Oh wow!
But while we were obviously remixing it, which was such a lengthy process, it sounds fantastic now. I mean, absolutely fantastic. But we were just commenting on how great and how theatrical and Ingrid's part is. There's a big culmination in the track Bathory area where she kind of recites this huge sort of finale. We were just listening to it and just thinking how great it was. And I remember when she came to the studio to undertake that, and she was slightly nervous as well because obviously everybody was there to watch her.
Yeah.
She just nailed it, absolutely nailed it. And when you listen to it on the record, it's so freeform. It sounds, they must have planned this. It just worked perfectly, and you could just tell that she was, this great actress, and with a real commanding, presence.
Do you have any favorite of those Hammer horror films? I mean, that seems to be coming up quite a bit in some of the work that you've been doing. Do you have any favorites?
Well, obviously, I love the everything that involved Christopher Lee, especially like the 7 Dracula movies he was involved in. They're all great. I mean, Satanic Rites of Dracula is a little bit silly, as does Dracula AD 1973, where Hammer actually missed the whole sort of craze that was going on in London at the time with the kids and that by a good 3 years or whatever. So we're totally out of favour, really. But yeah, I love all those. And there's some of obviously the Peter Cushing standalone films are great. Like She, The Beast Must Die. Actually, that was Amicus, I believe. So ignore that. Yeah, loads of Counter-Strike is obviously fantastic. All the stuff, the vampire stuff, I love. Vampire Lovers, Captain Kronos.
Yeah, Captain Kronos is I think it's a classic.
Think that's a Hammer.
It's not a Hammer film. Yeah, it's not, but it's great film.
Yeah, I always thought that should be remade.
I could see that for sure. Probably one of my favorites is The Curse of the Werewolf, but the featuring.
With Oliver Reed.
That's I think one of his first roles. I think is Oliver Reed is in that film. Great movie.
Yeah.
Sort of an interesting take on the werewolf.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever thought about getting into filmmaking, similar to like Rob Zombie makes movies and all that? Is that something you're ever interested in doing?
Well, we did the film Cradle of Fear.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh yeah, no, the movie came out in the year 2000. It was the most successful for a while underground British film because it was for the amount of money it made. Yeah, I mean that was like very much like an Amicus film, like a portmanteau, where you have an overriding story, but then 4 stories or 5 stories, small stories that are all related in between, and you have a culmination at the end. And I've just done a part in a film called, I've done some various bits and bobs over the years, but nothing prolific. But in a film called Baphomet, which is coming out this year, where I play an occult lecturer. And I mean, I'm only in it for about tops 3 minutes, but it was good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, always have a hand in the artwork and the supervising of video ideas and stuff. So I guess that sort of thing's the next thing, but it's when the opportunity arises. At the moment, I'm just busy beyond belief.
Sure, with the tour and all this other stuff coming up, definitely.
Well, I only just got back recently, not only from my travels, but last night my other band, Devilment, played a show at the Hard Rock Hell in Birmingham at the O2. So we didn't get back actually till about 5 o'clock this morning.
Oh wow!
Probably why I'm not so alive as I normally am.
I was going to ask you about Devilment. So how did you get involved in that? Because that's I mean, Cradle of Filth is definitely, especially when you're in these touring cycles, you're gone for years sometimes, and so taking on vocal duties in a band like Devilment, how'd that sort of come around?
Well, contrary to popular belief that I joined the band, actually formed band
Oh, okay.
with someone else. It was a local thing, and Cradle were going through some downtime, and I just got talked into it over a few drinks, and then it just sort of turned from an interest to a hobby to, wow, let's do this, and then a band, and then it came into direct conflict with Cradle and our previous man. We had like an interim manager. We've got a new manager now, which is Des and his wife Anastasia of the Oracle Management.
Oh,
he actually used to sing for Devil Driver.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And things going fantastically underneath him. But prior to that, we had a manager for 20 years, Faye Wolven, who basically brought the band up to where it was. But in the interim, we had this other guy, not great, not great at all. And yeah, I forgot I'm sorry, just thinking about him has really actually put me off. What we were talking about? What were we talking about? What was?
Oh, we're talking about Devilment and how that sort of started.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Well, he put play to that. He didn't want that coming between Cradle and you know me. So that was kind of dealt a bludgeoning death. And subsequently, the second Devilment album, which is fantastic and way better than the first, just didn't get the attention it deserved because we're on the same label, and the label had to kind of nullify it in order for it not to step on the supposed toes this manager imagined. So yeah, I mean, now it's really on a hiatus. I mean, the Devilment are halfway through writing another album, but have been for like the last 5 months because Cradle have been just so fucking busy.
Right. Now, for providing lyrics and the frontman sort of presence for two bands, like how do you express? Like, what's the difference in the way that you express yourself between Devilment and Cradle of Filth?
Well, Cradle of Filth, I would liken to like a poet like Edgar Allan Poe, someone with classical sensibilities, whereas Devilment would be more Tim Burton or Sylvia Plath, something with a little sort of more of a modernistic approach to it. That's how I view it.
Okay.
It probably makes no sense to anybody else, but
Yeah.
I tried.
Even in this conversation, as well as like in some of the stuff I've read, your lyrics and other interviews you've done, there's a strong sense of dark literature in all of your output. So what fascinated you to the darker side of art and literature and music originally? Because the world that we all operate in, we all have like, oh yeah, we're into like Edgar Allan Poe and all this, H.P. Lovecraft, but that's a relatively fringe slice of society. And so how did you get involved, or what was your initial interests in like the darker side of things?
Well, like I said, living in a locality where I grew up, village, England, I would say not middle of England, it's actually on the east coast of England. It's known as a witch county,
right.
Haunted East Anglia. Just atmosphere pervades your bones in this sort of part of the world. From that, watching black and white horror movies, studying English literature, that was just my chosen thing. It was always slightly morbid, led me into heavy metal. I think the two has a very strong connection, a very strong marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And that just opened up all kinds of vistas.
So maybe some of the earlier music you might have gotten into might have been like, some Merciful Fate and sort of Macabre, stuff like that.
Merciful Fate were literally one of the very, very first bands I heard.
Yeah. I could see the similarities, definitely.
Still one of the best albums I think I own is Don't Break the Oath.
Yeah, it's a great classic record,
Yeah, I wish Metallica would think so. They always seem to bang on about Melissa, but I think Don't Break the Oath's so much more superior. Perhaps they can't play it.
Maybe that could probably be it, actually. Did you formally study literature? Is that part of your background, your educational background?
Yeah, it was. But I didn't go to university because when most people take a bridge gap, like a year's gap, and they go traveling and that, I decided to pursue the band and give it a year and really work it. And in that time, we did like 3 demos and a jettisoned album and played with God knows how many bands and how many thousands of, postal contacts I made. By the end of the year, we were well on our way to being a professional band. So higher education never happened, and indeed, me never having a proper job never happened either.
Oh, that's a very fortunate thing. Definitely.
Well, it won't be fortunate if it suddenly all ends tomorrow.
So
fodder.
So when it comes to recording, because I mean, you guys have several. I mean, I don't know, like 10. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Let's say for argument's sake, 12 records, 12 full-length albums out. Do you actually enjoy the recording process, or is it painful? You know, it's a conflicting story I hear from a lot of different people about recording.
It's conflicting because it's painful because it's soul draining at times. But no, I actually prefer. I love creating stuff and I love being in the studio. I love having the time in the studio. I don't like being rushed on anything in life, nothing. So I like to just have a good time in the studio, have plenty of time to experiment and, just do the best and have it like an experience. No, I absolutely love being in the studio. I mean, yeah, obviously after 2 days of just listening to, toms being re-EQ'd, then that you actually do lose the will to live. But the rest of it, yeah, I love it. The mixing process is fantastic. Yeah. Once all the hard work's been done, then you've just got to sit back and paint the picture. And yeah, that's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, especially, I mean, being a singer is like such a personal way of, I mean, when you're playing guitar or drums, that's the sound, but the voice is like such an expressive instrument. And, even attacking, hitting certain lines, I think that there's a multitude of different ways you can hit that and express different emotions by saying the same thing, just using your voice differently. And that's why I imagine, like, being in the studio, you definitely would need ample time as a singer to get your point across.
Yeah, well, yeah, sometimes you don't need that at all, but you don't want to be, you're supposed to relax, The best work comes from being relaxed. And you'd be angry and relaxed. I know that sounds like a bit of a juxtaposition, but you can be. You're just going to be in the zone. And I like being in the zone. I like being with people that are comfortable. I like being in the environment. The best studios I've ever used have been ones that have been in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful countryside. Just relaxed, enjoying yourself, getting in the vibe. Atmosphere, dressing the studio up.
Yeah, creating an atmosphere.
We used to love going to these great residential studios where we'd live there for like 3 to 4 months. Amazing.
Wow. Damn. That's pretty, you can definitely get into an atmosphere if you live someplace for 4 months for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's with the upcoming tour. And, the last year or so of touring, I imagine you probably haven't even been thinking about new material or writings, but have you? Have you had any song ideas?
We're in the sort of lower echelons of writing a new album. We're due to be in the studio by the end of the year. So we're on tour pretty much from the 2nd of March through to mid-April. God, we're lucky. Mid-August. And somehow during all that we've got to finish writing an album, so it's going to be a busy year. It's going to be a busy year.
I mean, with the writing, is it something that is sort of a continuous process, or is it something that so I imagine some bands
generally we set time aside for it, but this time around the success of Cryptoriana was so prolific that we've come back to do, pretty much another 100 and whatever shows. So, with that in mind, we've just got to this time do it differently. Right under pressure, right out of our comfort zone, see what happens.
Do you enjoy touring? Because I mean, at this stage, you've been doing it for quite a while, decades, and these long, jaunts across the globe, I imagine, are tiring. So, is it something you still enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've got to get the everything's got to be right. And with this American tour, we've got, like I say, new management, and everything's been planned to the letter. Of course, it is not going to run to the letter, but that's, we're at least out of the starting blocks already. We've got a great crew, great booking agents, great management, great bands playing, great fans turning up, great meet and greets planned, great stage show, great tour bus. We've got things planned and other things got to do. We've got great press agents. We've got great things happening, fun things happening. Like, for example, when I go to New York, I've got to go and be tattooed for a TV program with Paul Booth. And,
oh, wow. Paul Booth.
Little cool things like that. So got a few horror things I've got to do as well along the way. So, yeah, of course I enjoy it. It's chaotic, but, as long as you can put some order into that chaos because, at the end of the day, you're out there to address the fans, give them a good time, give them what they want, the music. So you've got to be fit, not drunk, not tired, and you can only be that if you're focused and everything's in the right place. But, you know what I mean? It is a job, but it's also a lifestyle, so you've got to enjoy it.
Oh, right. Did you select the support on this tour, or is that something that management and booking put together?
Well, it's about Wednesday 13 was a band that we always wanted to support us anyway, but it was quite lucky that both bands were actually on the roster of the Oracle management. So it made perfect sense to have them all under the same wing. It was so much easier to manage the tour and go between the different bands and say, this is happening or this isn't happening, and this is what's happening with the rider, and this is your game. You know what I mean? It was logistically, it was a lot better, and I think it works really well. The fact that all three bands are very dramatic and theatrical, and I think it's going to, with the various stage shows, give the fans a really, really intense night's experience.
Well, Dani, thank you very much for your time. Good luck.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Good luck with the upcoming dates, and so yeah, we'll see you out there. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks ever so much. Take care. Cheerio.
Take care. You've been listening to Metal Matters, a Gimme Radio podcast. We'll be back next week, so be sure to subscribe and never miss out. Also, be sure to check out Gimme Radio via web, iOS, or Android for one of the best metal communities in the world, exclusive interviews and merch, and so much more.